Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another in the series of the Digital Steering Committee's webinars hosted by EuropeActive. Thank you all for joining us, and thank you to our panel today for joining us as well. Some work in the background gone on. Just wanted to quickly just let everyone know there is coming up a new EuropeActive guidance session, online learning, coming up. You can find it on the EuropeActive website. It's all the detail that EuropeActive have pulled together in terms of reopening your club or your clubs or your chain as COVID-19 moves out of your territory. So take a look out for that. Today we're going to be focusing on, in essence, the membership management systems and how the digital platform is so important as you move into reopening and the support that is given through the COVID-19 period. And on top of that, we'll jump into some digital strategy as well and get some feedback from the experts from each one of our panelists on how that's going to look from their perspective as well. So in essence, what we're going to cover first off, let me just get that moving. Let me just give you a quick intro to everyone on board. We have Mads joining us from Sports Solution, Rémi, from Exerp, and Nathan from Perfect Gym to talk us through from each one of their perspectives. Myself, Chair of the EuropeActive Digital Transformation Steering Committee, I'll be running us through the day as before. You will see a few of the themes that I've picked out before. They'll be here again. I think it's really important to repeat some of those messages. Just really helps us frame that as an industry as we move forward. So the agenda, really just going to touch through a few of the key elements and then jump into the learnings, and each one of our panelists will be delivering some of that, and then we'll do a quick summary at the back end. So let me just talk about quickly consumer-driven well-being. We've talked about that in the past in terms of the consumer having much more power, many more options, being more interested in experience, different price points, and also about the control that they have as they think about their own betterment and physical activity, nutrition, mental well-being, etc. I thought it was important just to highlight what that means in terms of automation, the digital club. If you think about all of the touch points that a consumer has, and what we're trying to do is to put that power in their hands so that they can make their own decisions, book their own classes, get involved as quickly and as easy as possible on the tools that they use on a regular basis. And that means bringing in an omni-channel automation approach. So by doing that, you give the consumer their control, their options, and as a result, they get much more disruptive in the activities that they do. It's inevitable, it's happened in every industry, and it's a really important piece of the puzzle. So it's really important that you think about automation as you move forward, as you get back to opening up your clubs. So just remembering here the EuropeActive Digital Transformation Framework, we talked about good, better, and best. Good being really about digital presence. So digital presence includes that automation. It includes things like digital marketing. It includes your website, your app, your interactions, your omni-channel interactions with your consumer. So a really important piece of the puzzle. It's the basics, it's the foundation, and it's fundamental in today's age. Digital evolution is the piece that we've spent most of our time on these webinars. We've talked about the experiences and those that are delivered digitally, the acceleration that we've seen clearly of that sector. And then ultimately, just a reminder, and we'll go through this a few times, digital transformation is really where we're heading. And this is about personalization, and it's about population growth. And that allows us to capitalize on that powerful consumer as they disrupt all industries, not just our industry. So the EuropeActive ecosystem, you've probably seen this from the Deloitte report, great report. It gives us a feel for all of the players in the marketplace. This is ever growing. I think I saw this first time 3 years ago, and it's a significantly larger volume of brands now involved here. So this is something that I think you can take a look at just to think about, okay, so which areas of these do I want to connect with that really work with my purpose? So moving on from that, let's just recap on COVID-19. So what happened from an operator perspective? Obviously, we've had, all of us here today have had lots of interactions with the operator, and we've been helping through that process. So firstly, we saw in early March, a global shutdown, unprecedented, never happened before. We were just chatting beforehand and just talking about how that happened in different countries, whether that was Middle East, where they had a couple of hours, or we talked about Denmark, where they had a few days. Very different environments, but nevertheless, everyone shutting down in early March. Quickly, we see crisis management. How do you manage that? How do you manage your memberships? What can you do to manage that in terms of mass efforts and so on? So I'm sure the guys will talk about that today, as I know Nathan will. Just as, how can you get through that process? And what if it happens again? Potentially there is, a threat of this happening again. So can we be efficient in managing that? We then saw digital acceleration. So I'm sure you remember the first webinar that we did, which talked about the acceleration of interest, moving up to the almost 100th percentile in terms of searches around activities that I can do digitally at home. We saw people like Wexer having some huge growth there, for example. We then saw the response. So what are people doing? What are operators doing? What ecosystem are they starting to deliver? We saw some really good examples of that. And now we get to early May and we're starting to see the reopening. So you'll see some detail along the day, along the session from that, and really focusing in on what happens there. So I'm going to go straight to the panel, just set the scene there. So learnings from the panel. We're going to come to yourself first, Rémi, if you don't mind. Just talk to us about how did you engage with the process, the problem, the challenge, your customers? What did that look like from your perspective?
Yes, thank you, Peter. I'll be quite brief and talk to you about our experience. And it started on the 11th of March in Denmark, where we were all sitting at home looking at the Prime Minister's press conference and announcing total lockdown, total shutdown of the country. On the 12th of March, next day, Exerp was working 100% remotely without any disruption to our clients' relationship or services. It's fairly easy for a digital native company, but it was quite good to see how effective we were at going remote and starting working from home. So that was the start. It was a little early compared to the rest of Europe, and we could definitely see that there was a little bit of a misunderstanding, or people were looking at things happening and not really understanding what it is that when your country is actually shutting down. If you can switch to the next slide, Peter. The second thing that happened, and very quickly, is we've set up a COVID-19 task force. We saw a client beginning to close clubs. I mean, in Italy, they had closed clubs earlier, but we saw a huge need for doing mass changes to members, to the billing, and we set up an agile team which included support, consultants, DevOps, to advise, support, implement closing procedures as agreed with our clients. Among other things, changes to billing, cancellations of bookings, communication with members. It's been a huge effort in a panic situation, I would say, and we've been putting a lot of resources into that. The same task force has been working all along with our clients, and now working on reopening plans. So that's I think what has been most important for us in that period.
Apologies there, team. Getting my my spacebar unmute button mixed up with my forward slide button. Another professional effort there from me. Thank you, Rémi. Appreciate that. Clearly, lots of work went straight into solving this problem from literally day one, as you set up that task force. Mads, let's jump in and hear from you.
Yeah, and good to see, Peter, that you're a digital native, just playing around with the IT. That's great. Well, first of all, I would say a huge thank you to EuropeActive and to you, Pete, for setting up this range of webinars. I think it's brilliant, and it adds a lot of value to the entire industry. And while these are definitely sad and challenging times for many, it also makes extremely good sense to start thinking about what this envision this what breakthroughs and digital disruptions this crisis will actually lead to in the future. And of course, a lot of things have been going on the digital scene for a long time, but now things have kind of accelerated a lot. One initial learning that we made was that the technology actually that a lot of people have feared for, actually before the last 3 months, is suddenly what actually keeps us all together, ties everything together, and actually enables us to continue working. So I think that's a bit of a paradox, but it's a really good learning. And I think society in general has definitely picked up their learning curve. We know and we've seen that a lot of things can be done remotely. Rémi also touched on it, without having to show up physically, and I think that's a brilliant learning for all of us. And I reckon that most of us actually miss the personal contact, the hugs and the face-to-face time for sure, but we must also admit that this situation that we are in has actually proven that we can save a lot of time and be much more efficient in what we are doing, and we can build on that in the future for sure. And looking at the industry, I think as you've also touched on before, the remote exercise, well, we've seen a boom in that, and the demand for virtual exercise has just exploded. And front runner solutions are having a field time at the moment, but I think we've just seen the tip of the iceberg, and there's much more to come, and it's interesting times. We've also seen that this overnight shutdown has put tremendous pressure on infrastructure. And one thing that I again have reflected a bit on, and I think is funny, is that Microsoft Teams went down in the middle of peak time, and that just proves that there's no such thing as a bulletproof system. But what is important is that we pick up on the learnings and we continuously improve what we're actually doing. And it also proves the importance of choosing the right digital supplier to support your business. So what we saw with the same timeline as Rémi mentioned was that in conjunction with the press conference, we saw a boom in the requests coming to our system, and that was simply because all our customers at the same time canceled all their classes. And at the same time also we saw that the number of requests coming from the end user, the consumer, via app or a web page went down quite heavily. And just after that we saw that communication went up, and just as an example, our texts sent via the system to members went up with more than 200% in the coming days. Can I have the next slide, please? So in very analog with what Rémi said, we closed our office on the 12th of March, and we did that of the same reasons as Rémi mentioned. But we also managed to keep our service levels and the average response time actually better, which again is a little bit of a paradox. But I think most of it had to do with that we went into this state of crisis emergency setup together with our customers. So we immediately began contacting them and setting up individual plans together with them on how best to support them, and increase the communication together with our members and our customers hugely. And we have, in conjunction with, say, 3,000 certification that we did last year, we already had a contingency plan in place. So it was actually just to push the start button, and virtual meetings and everything that was already in place, and it just worked perfectly. But from one day to the next, request and activity was down by close to 90%. And the last thing that we saw in conjunction with the beginning of the COVID situation was that we learned that some of our customers actually didn't have the right contingency plan in place, and they actually hadn't thought in a situation that was so extreme that what we saw, and that was where we could really support them and help them in actually getting through the first difficult steps of this COVID situation.
Great stuff. Thank you, Mads. Really appreciate that. You made already a really good point about the increase in communication and missing that personal contact. I think, in essence, that is quite a nice description of automation. We're seeing an acceleration of that happening so that people can then, in the future, have more time to do the things they want, and they can move through the organization of life in a much faster way through automation. So seeing those numbers go up like that makes a lot of sense. Nathan, we're gonna move across to yourself now. If you want to just take us through how Perfect Gym managed that initial setup.
Thanks, Peter. So our experience actually very similar to both Rémi's and Mads, in that within Europe, we obviously saw the early March close downs. In Poland, where our head office is, they actually mandated home working for businesses prior to their full lockdown right at the beginning of March. So that's where we started to see it on the European side, but we'd already had quite a lot of traffic from our Asia Pacific customers, who obviously were ahead of the curve in terms of the spread of COVID-19. So that's where we really started to step up in terms of a proactive education process. So rather than waiting for the support questions to come in, we actively put together some learnings, webinars, content for the kind of key tools that had started coming in from Asia Pacific, which were basically around mass freezing, payment deferments for members, club closures, changes to timetables, those kind of things. So the whole proactive side was our first stage and really important in what we were doing. And then we accelerated our development pathway, completely turned our development process around, and prioritized the live streaming features that we put into our mobile app and our timetabling for customers, because it was very quickly apparent that a lot of clubs needed to retain engagement with their customers, because no one has ever really experienced a complete shutdown of the fitness industry like this. And Mads, you made a really good point as well about the things like Wexa. So back in the day, I was an early beta tester for Wexa when it first launched. And for a long time, people looked at these things as kind of ancillary, but actually they very much came to the fore, and hence the reason why we rolled those out, along with the monetization side, so that people could continue to actually generate revenue within their facilities, although much less revenue. So it's been a really interesting process to see a change from what is often seen as reactive customer support and customer engagement into a fully proactive approach. But it seems to have worked really, really well. And we've seen that with the response of our customers on that front. And then that education has continued as people have moved through the phases of initial lockdown, attempts to engage with members through different platforms outside of the four walls of the club, and then ultimately towards reopening strategies, which have been really important. And we can see just on the recent visits thing on the right-hand side of the slide, where we were in January with aggregated visitor data across locations around the world, to where we're slowly getting to at the end of May, beginning of June, as clubs start to reopen in different parts of the world.
Thank you, Nathan. Really appreciate that. Just thinking about that aggregated data, one of the things I know that the industry is really interested in is the volume of people that come back. Knowing how important the volume is and the percentage of people is to getting across the breadline for our industry. Do you think that's something that data could produce on an aggregated fashion?
Definitely. I mean, obviously it's hugely dependent on how facilities use access control strategies, the kind of systems, how they do check-ins, how they do class management. But as long as the data is there, I think it's going to give us two clear sets of metrics. Firstly, rate of return. There will be a level of fear in certain populations. And again, it depends how badly countries have been hit. But then equally, whether there's going to be a behavior change. So we've heard talk of governments suggesting that people's work times will be staggered so that they're not congesting public transport. That might well lead into a change in attendance patterns from the traditional early morning, lunchtime, early evening kind of peaks that we would traditionally see in the fitness industry. So the data is going to give us some really interesting insights, both on rate of return, growth as well, because a lot of people have engaged in exercise for the first time whilst in lockdown, interestingly, and now may return to clubs, and also the timings. So it's going to be interesting to see where the data plays out in the next 3 to 6 months.
Yeah, thank you, Nathan. I'm just going to dwell there, actually. Rémi or Mads, any insight in terms of the data that we're seeing as people start to get back?
Yeah, so I can't really share concrete data, but some indication from some of our clients that have reopened or maybe have not closed is that some of our clients are seeing already activity levels at 80% of pre-COVID, so that's quite encouraging. And I would say none of our clients are expecting growth in terms of members this year, and I think everybody would be pretty happy if we can maintain, end of the year where the year started. I think that's the general objective. Whether it will succeed or not is difficult to say at this point.
Yeah, it's a good point, and I think that data and as a group making it available for review is going to be a really important piece of the puzzle.
And just adding to that, we know that we can see that some of our primarily larger chains and customers are asking for this sort of information, and this is again where it's proven the value of having the right supplier, because we actually have that data. Most of us, all of us sitting here around the table, we have that data. So it's just a matter of pulling that out and finding a structured way to present it to the customers and the stakeholders, and helping them in making sense of what kind of data is available. And that's again where we, as suppliers, I think have a vital role in both today but also in the future, to really get a grasp on how our customers and the consumers are thinking, and how we can utilize the data that we have available to produce valuable information.
Yeah, it's a great point, Mads. In essence, that's really what I wanted to say on this slide too. Is as we see consumer-driven wellbeing happen and we see the consumer take control, the importance of having that platform that can provide you data that you can learn from and adapt from, that can help you deliver an experience ecosystem, ultimately create population-specific information that can help you build your operational journey from. That is really, I guess, digital transformation. If we don't have that platform in place, it becomes very difficult to deliver that strategy. Gents, we're just a little behind as I thought we would be on the first section. I'm going to jump on to the next set of learnings. We're going to go straight to you, Rémi. If you could just give us a feel for the value that Exerp produced during COVID-19.
Yes, thank you, Peter. So you're probably wondering why we have a little fellow on our slide here, but it's an illustration of adaptation to environments. This little guy is changing color instantly to match his surroundings, and its survival is depending very much on that capacity. Same goes for businesses. More than ever, we're living in a fast-changing world, and Corona crisis has been really an extreme example of that. I think the ability to quickly adapt your business to changing conditions is essential, and a versatile business platform is really a serious competitive advantage. One example, a number of our clients have opted for booking of training sessions to face reopening limitations or reopening government regulations. And we've mostly been able to find out-of-the-box solutions to meet those new requirements. For example, from granting access through gates only to members that have a booking, maybe limiting number of future bookings for members, restricting access to booking in case they don't show up. So you have, really open your capacity to all of your members and not just the few enthusiastic. So that thing, platform versatility is really essential in the modern world. If you change the slide. The second thing is, I would say, exceptional client service. So in our case, we had our success managers in close contact, hour by hour, by text with our clients' executives. Of course, we can do that because we have, we have not so many and very large clients. So we have, our team is an extension of our clients' teams. We've mobilized a task force, a significant task force, and we delivered well above 1,000 hours of free assistance to our clients so far. So this is something that normally is consulting services, but we've delivered this for free, not to profit from the crisis. It's been possible because we did not furlough any of our staff. I mean, we've seen many of our clients obviously furloughing a lot of staff. On our end, we were all hands on deck, crisis situation. And some of our clients actually had furloughed so much staff that their own capacity to react to the situation was quite lower, than they heavily relied on our teams to be able to, for example, do all the mass changes to the memberships that were needed to be done. So we've really been there and well, more than took the hands. I mean, did some of our clients work to help them as much as we could.
Great stuff. Thank you, Rémi. Clearly lots of effort going in as this hit. Mads, I'm going to jump on to you now.
Yeah, and I'll do my best to keep it short, Peter, but please remember that one of the reasons to why we're behind is because all of us are so engaged and enthusiastic about this trade, so we can talk for hours. But as I mentioned earlier, I think what we've seen is that the importance of having a digital plan and contingency plan in place, and where we both previously and today and in the future will add extreme value is in the way that we engage with our customers. In general, we provide kind of a toolbox for the customers to use, and all of us do, but no technology in itself, in my view, can stand alone. It's a matter of how you interact with the personal relationship also. And that's why instead of, well, Rémi called it customer success, we call it our relationship managers. And the relationship manager structure that we have in place is simply to ensure that our customers have the same touch point with us, no matter where they are in the day-to-day business. Meaning that our relationship managers are actually in charge of the entire customer journey. And that helps us in providing not just the management tool and the toolbox, but also help in formulating guidelines and ensuring that our customers are in place with the right procedures to be compliant and stuff like that. So we can give advice in a much, much more close and detailed way. We can provide individual data and reporting to a large extent together with the customers. And obviously also provide an easy access to engage with the members and easy way to communicate with them. As an example, when we closed down, but we could do a mass communication and mass close down in one go, making it extremely convenient for our customers to communicate and engage their members. And then obviously also help, as we already do, but even more in the future, help streamline administration for our customers so that they can actually have time freed up to do what they do best. And that's definitely not administration. That it is engaging with their customers, with the members in training, being healthy, simply spend time on the floor, and we can help with streamlining administration so that can actually happen. And then, of course, we are continuously intensifying how we can utilize technology. We already talked about it a little bit earlier, but we are definitely accelerating it at the moment with open APIs and looking at artificial intelligence and all these buzz technologies to find out how we can support the trade and the customers, and not least the members, even more in the future.
Great stuff. Thank you, Mads. Much appreciated. Nathan, let's hear from yourself and Perfect Gym.
So in terms of value, I think what we've seen is that a lot of the core elements of our platform really came to the fore in this period, because we have a lot of features that a lot of our customers genuinely don't use that often. So for example, the mundane stuff you never see, like the mass changing tools, those came to the fore to let people manage their businesses efficiently, especially as both Rémi and Mads have pointed out, a lot of our customers had less staff working than they'd like due to furlough schemes and everything else. What we also saw was a much bigger utilization of things like the goal tracking and integrations within our mobile apps. The class live streaming, both mobile and desktop, the uptake was phenomenal across multiple territories and multiple different fitness environments. So not just the large clubs with big membership things, but the smaller, more boutique facilities as well. And then because of the way we've built our ecosystem to be as open as possible, a lot of the tools that we have within our products are also available to our integration partners. So things like being able to show capacity in a mobile app is also available to all of our mobile app partners. So a lot of the value that our inherent value really came to the fore in this period. And I think it's also helped change the viewpoint of our customers on how they're going to use our platforms going forward as well. So it's been really interesting to see how that's worked. And then on top of that, also the proactive nature. A lot of our team are fitness industry people first and technology people second. So it's been really, really helpful in assisting our customers and understanding their needs. And I think that really, really paid off for us as well during this period.
Thank you, Nathan. Much appreciated. So let's start talking about reopening. So what's next? How are we going to handle this? How are we going to support? Obviously, we've heard from everybody that actually the volume of work for the suppliers here seems to have gone up during COVID-19. So what does it mean as we go back to reopening?
Yeah, I think for us, there's a couple of things. Obviously, some functionality in our platform to limit number of members in the club, combined with booking of your club capacity to face new regulations. This has to work together with PT and Group X booking. So if you want to get this entirely right, it's not so simple. You don't want to have, for example, someone has booked a PT session, you don't want to have them locked out of the club because suddenly you've reached the max capacity. So you need to get those things right, and it requires some effort. So we've refocused our developments around those things. We've also been a sparring partner for our clients and sharing ideas, best practices across leading club operators around the world, which are our clients. So I think there's been a quite important a role from our side. And we're also adapting, our future product roadmap. I think there's no surprise, but it's facilitating activities outside of the wall of the club. Definitely when you have lockdown and there's lots more happening outside, but also across the world, I would say, and that's directly in line with what you mentioned in terms of communicating through digital ways. So from the club, but to people at home or wherever they may be. And all of that has to work efficiently at scale. And this is pretty much the business we're in. And without being, much more detailed, I think that's the focus areas that we have for the near future.
Yeah, great stuff. Thank you, Rémi. Mads, what have you got planned?
We have a lot of interesting things planned, but overall, I would say, I think, again, here we have to remember that as suppliers, technology cannot stand alone. Technology, as we see it from our perspective, is the link and key element in what we now define as people-to-people transformation. Because in the past, we've talked about business to business, business to consumer, but we think that there's a shift happening. And it's actually my commercial department that came up with this people-to-people idea, and I think it's a good point that they made. So we have a huge challenge in taking as suppliers all the technology that is out there and will be available in the future, really understand the need and the situation of the user and make things simple. We need to bring it down to a level where people can relate to it and they can use it and they can be present and they can be operational. So we must meet both the users and our customers on their courtyard. But a little bit more detail, we continue to help our customers formulate strategies in terms of digitalization, and even put more emphasis on that in the future, and help them orchestrate their business, help them set up virtual classes and stuff like that to keep their business going. We are developing continuously new features, and the recent one we made was it's a live load count that our customers can integrate into their web page, showing the live load the live load in their gym, showing the consumer sitting at home thinking, oh, now I want to go down and do some exercise. He can actually see live how many people are in the gym at this time. And then that can help both the consumer, but also the gym in planning their resources and their peak time, and help in the social distancing situation that we are in. And then, of course, also use of webinars much more than what we've done in the past, and take up various topics that are of interest to our customers and help them address these in a much more efficient and better way than what we've seen in the past. And last but not least, the interaction with other key players in the trade, being both some of our good colleagues out there. I have a couple of them here sitting around the table, but also the end user and the customer in general, and really do some knowledge sharing and sharing of best practices, because I think it's truly benefit all of us. And we can definitely make 1 + 1 = 3 or even more if we all are on the same page and want to do good for the trade and good for the industry and the general well-being of the population. So very much into this, how can we be even better tomorrow than what we are today, and linking the technology with the human side of things, making things simple, present and operational.
Great stuff. Thank you, Mads. I love that saying, people to people. You know, it's really aligned to the network effect, which ultimately is a really good way to, to reduce the skills gap, if you like, and just move forward with digital. Nathan, I'm going to jump straight in with you. If you can just talk us through.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. So the key things in terms of supporting reopening that we started with, first of all, was we brought together a lot of our customers in different territories, especially those with previous experience of SARS-CoV type outbreaks, so particularly in the Asia-Pacific region, although not on the extent we've seen this time, to share best practices amongst our customers. And from that, we've started to build out the reopening approaches based on those territories, with things like the capacity views in point of sale and class check-in that are an inherent part of our system and our access control platform to begin with. We've also, similar to Mads, added in capacity views in our mobile app, our client portal, and obviously it's already in our class structure. But it is also, and has always been, part of our API, so it's also available for our customers who build their own web journeys and their own web experiences. So that's been, I think, a really important part of the initial reopening strategies, is giving the customers the digital tools to be able to book capacities into the club, book capacities into classes, manage capacities within the club as well by dividing it up into zones, so that you can have your PT zone with a set number of people in it. And once that's full, you can see that it's full. On top of that, we've then had the hardware approach, and that's been really, really important. So, for example, we have clients in Asia Pacific who are using thermal scanning as part of their door entry process for what is pretty much a standalone gym on a 24-hour basis. So that is now part of their access control approach, using our access server, so that people have to pass a temperature scan before they can actually use the access control system. And we've also seen a lot of people talking about moving to what is effectively touch-free access control. So whether that's QR code scanning via the mobile app, where people just use their phone and there's no cards and no fingerprint, or biometrics using facial recognition with temperature scanning. So we're doing a lot of work in that area to bring on board those technologies as they're released by some of our partners like Suprema and Gantner. So there's a lot of ongoing work on top of what we have currently in the system itself. And then what we've also looked at is the human element. So not every club has huge investment in access control technology, for example. So we've also worked with our customers on basic manual strategies once they've put in place the digital piece. So simple things like the pop-ups in the point of sale application to say the club is full. Understanding how to use the capacities in classes which are being used for booking your entry slot into the club to check people in and out of the facility, as well as the actual physical access control approaches as well. And then on top of that, the digital messaging, so that once someone has entered the facility using push notifications via email, mobile app, potentially SMS as well if people are using that, to notify people how long they've been in the club and that they should be getting ready to leave before the next cohort of people are going to be entering. So we've put a lot of work into the digital piece, but also the human piece as well. Because, you know, as Mads rightly said, the human element is actually probably just as critical as the digital piece in getting this right for our customers.
Thank you, Nathan. Listen, guys, we're going to jump to the future now. So what does digital transformation look like in the future? And how can we help operators build that digital future? So Rémi, we'll go back to you if you don't mind.
Yeah, thank you. So digital transformation. Here is a picture of SpaceX rockets. I don't know if you're following this, but last weekend they successfully sent 2 Americans astronauts to the International Space Station. It's a huge visible accomplishment. And behind this accomplishment, there's, you know, an amazing amount of technology and engineering. You know, they've really disrupted, or they are disrupting the rockets, the space industry. But it didn't happen, you know, from one day to another. SpaceX, they've been in the rocket business for 20 years. And digital transformation is a little bit the same. You know, from the outside, it looks like the path to success is very straight and fast, and suddenly you have an app, and suddenly you have, you know, personalization, and you know everything about your customer and a single customer view. But from the inside, it's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of persistence. It's try and errors, and I think that's really important to understand that it doesn't happen just because suddenly you say now we need to, you know, to be more digital. At Exerp, we've been in the business of digital transformation for 15 years. So we know, you know, you need a solid business platform as a fundament to build your transformation on. And we've helped, you know, leading operators from 50,000 to millions of members through their journey of becoming more member-centric. What maybe has, you know, what has changed with Corona? I mean, we've been talking about this, and what does this mean for the industry? Obviously, there's the social distancing, but my guess is it's probably not going to have long-lasting effects. I mean, humans are so social animals. Social needs are really deeply rooted. So I think this will pass. Probably what has been, you know, the biggest change for businesses and for people is we've been forced to adapt rapidly. I mean, we've talked about this. I mean, it's the acceleration. I mean, how fast all of this been. We've all been pushed to innovate. Suddenly, there was no more fear for failure. You know, when the situation is so terrible that everything is closed, you know, what can you lose? No one is afraid of failure. It can't really get any worse. Suddenly, there was no more endless meetings without taking any decisions. I mean, we've seen executive teams sitting every day, having meetings, taking decisions on a daily basis, that accelerates things quite a bit. Suddenly, there was no one aiming for perfection.
Thank you, Rémi. I really appreciate that. I think this interesting notion of shifting from digital evolution to digital transformation, I think is an important one too. I think as the data becomes available, machine learning gets in place, personalization happens, then I think we'll see another acceleration of the digital journey that we're on. But I appreciate that. Mads, if you can just fly through this one for me, that would be great.
I'll do that. So there's no doubt in my mind that there will be new features required in the future. And I put in here, it could be something with the thermal part that Nathan already touched on. Could also be using and utilizing surveillance, not for surveillance as we know it to keep track of people, but actually help in monitoring the space in a gym. So some of the technology that was, some of the features that was a little bit in the background yesterday are now coming very much in the forefront instead. So we are shifting the roadmap on development in general. And also in the future, I think our role will be also expanded a little bit to this consultancy part. So just as an example, we've hosted a series of webinars for our customers, but here last week we had a webinar on the importance of being visible online to help our customers really understand the need for them to have a digitalized plan in place and how to use various platforms in engaging and communicating with the customers. And this is where, again, we see this people-to-people transformation and why we believe that the relationship management structure that we have in place will actually also in the future be a very important part of our competitive setup. And I also see that we see a shift in it's no longer just resource management. It will also be facility management to a large extent in the future. And here again, technology is really key to insight. So there's going to be a lot of work in taking the data that we have available and shifting that around and working with it so that we can provide the right set of material for our customers in terms of facility management to make the right decisions at the right time. And then working to improve and expand our different channels. New app that we just launched. We launched it at the beginning of April, where our customers can personalize it and make it their own by choosing a number of different styles and templates. And that links into the whole focus on the entire customer journey and value chain, and really understanding the crossovers that there is between business, technology, social, corporate responsibility, like corporate social responsibility, and the complexity that lies within this cross field. Yeah.
Thank you, Mads. I really appreciate that. Nathan, talk us through the projection of the future from Perfect Gym's perspective.
So I think what we're really looking at for the future is that the data-driven element of business is going to become critical. From using the platform to collect that data and being the centerpiece of that data collection and aggregation, through to how you profile your business, segmenting your customers and understanding what makes a good customer, what makes a customer that's likely to leave, so your retention strategies and everything else, and then filtering that knowledge into the ecosystem that our customers can give to their customers. So the biggest challenge in the world of software is what I call the walled garden. And that is where a company's 80% of their products will be great, 20% will not be that good, and you don't have any alternative on those 20%. By moving to a fully open ecosystem with no restrictions, with no walls, effectively, allows the customer to build that ecosystem to suit their client portfolio. And as that client portfolio changes, they can pivot that ecosystem so that they can keep driving experiences that are led by the consumer. And what that also starts to do is open up new consumers, because it allows businesses to start thinking outside of the four walls of what they do within the club. So traditionally, operating within a health club, you had a health club, and then maybe a personal trainer might take someone for a run. And that was as far as people got outside of the four walls. Technology has changed that. And I think the massive acceleration in change of something as dramatic as the COVID-19 shutdown is really going to enhance that very quickly. I mean, as Rémi said, we've been in the digital transformation industry for 15 years. And sometimes it feels as if we've been talking to ourselves. Yet in the past 3 months, again, as Rémi said, we've had decisions being made literally within meetings, whereas previously there would be a 6-month to and fro process before anything was vaguely decided about being decided. So it's definitely brought about its own level of transformation on that front. So I think that's where we see the future at Perfect Gym being. We are the platform in the middle, and we give you those choices.
Great stuff. Thank you, Nathan. Rémi, I can see you're itching just to put in a final comment on that digital transformation, please. Go ahead, please.
Yeah. I was giving some examples of barriers to innovation that suddenly disappeared, and I think it's quite important for everyone to understand what those barriers are. And suddenly, no one was aiming for perfection, but everyone was pragmatic about and going for solutions that are here available. Suddenly, everyone was doing very quick cycles of implementation, test, delivery, and then changes happen so much faster. So to put it short, suddenly the pace of innovation has been very high. And just like this is what the Silicon Valley has been doing for decades. And this is, everyone is looking at Silicon Valley, how do you innovate? And this is what's been happening, is the pace of transformation that has been allowed by having all those barriers suddenly going away. And I think the big question is, are we going to go back to the old habits when this is, when the crisis is over? We know very well that the fitness and in the fitness industry, it's really difficult to change habits to create lasting impacts on your health. Everybody knows that. So I say, let's not forget what happened and how fast we've been able to move things during this period when business as usual is settling in, and our shareholders turn their focus to the bottom line of 2020. I think let's not forget that, and let's keep pushing and innovating fast, like we've shown we've been able to do. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Rémi. You make a really good point. The speed of change, the fact that if we can keep this moving forward now, one of the things I draw on several times this year is, if you think about the major theme at CES exhibition this year, it was all about human-centered, human wellness, digital technology. And I think that, we're a very physical, emotional business, but as digital starts to orientate itself around the human, we'll start to see that acceleration as you described. Gents, I'm just going to bring us to a close now. We're coming to the end, so a couple of slides just to wrap up, and then any questions that anyone would like to bring out, very happy to take those. If I can just really quickly just go on to sort of a summary here. So I think what we've seen clearly some extensive crisis management. We've seen a lot of support come from the platform providers that are on this webinar today, and some really difficult times that have been adapted to very quickly. We've seen the market shift. We've seen a distinct change in terms of the acceleration of digital experiences, and we've seen operators start to adapt to that. And as a result, we're starting to see this need for a real future-proof platform that can really support and help this human journey as it includes inside and outside of the facility. And that obviously is going to include experiences, and we've had 2 or 3 examples of that on webinars over the last 2 or 3 weeks, just showing how that consumer is demanding and grabbing what they want from experiences. With that comes a need to strategic plan. You can hear from everyone on this panel that we're here to help. We do have lots of experience from other customers, from ourselves, from the technology that we're looking into, from our partnerships and so on. So don't hesitate to reach out and bring together your your supplier to support you with that. And ultimately, here's the thing: we may go back with only 80% or 88% as the EuropeActive team are projecting in the UK. There could well be a short term. What we should expect is that a higher interest in activity, a higher interest in health and well-being, and the likelihood is growth for our business. And if we can become population specific at the same time, and we can start to offer those the right experiences to the right populations, driven often by data and machine learning, then we're more likely to create population growth. And I think ultimately that's the opportunity that could come from this this challenging time that we've been through. So we're going to go to a poll in a second, just to wrap up. But before we go, guys, 20 seconds, anything that you would lastly like to say to the audience before we leave?
Well, I'd say quite simply, thank you for your time, and I hope your businesses are going to get open again as fast as possible, because that's really what we mostly care about, getting those members back and start training again. A lot of my colleagues in the office have put on some weight. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of members that are dying to get that weight down again for the summer holidays.
And just backing Rémi on that, thank you very much all for listening to us. And I also think, hopefully, I speak for all of us when I say that you can rest assured that this is an ongoing exercise that we are on, digitalization and the way we can combine people with technology. So it is definitely it's an ongoing and never-ending story that we are embarking on. For sure. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank everyone for attending and for the input from Rémi and Mads as well. It's been really interesting to see that even though we're all working for different providers, that we've all seen a very similar approach for our customers. And I think what the future holds and the changes that we can bring about because of this will be really, really positive for the industry as a whole. So I think that's what I'm really looking forward to as well. But thank you all for your participation as well.
Thank you, team. Really appreciate it. Big thank you to our panel who put a bunch of work in. Rémi and I still chatting last night online, finishing up content. So really appreciate it. Mads, Rémi, Nathan, really appreciate your time. For all of those watching, don't forget to take a look at that COVID-19 return to opening guidance online learning offered by EuropeActive. Just jump on their website to see the details of that. I think it's going to be a really nice summary of all of the things that have been talked about over the last few weeks as people from around the world work out how to open their clubs. So with that, we're going to leave you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for watching, and hopefully we'll see you again soon. Thank you, team.
Thank you. Bye.